This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Welcome to The Commercial Investing Show, where we analyze, explain, and exploit the opportunities presented in today's commercial property marketplace. If you're interested in apartments, mobile home parks, self-storage facilities, and other income property, you've come to the right place. We'll explore what's hot and what's not in markets nationwide in the relentless pursuit of return on investment. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
It's my pleasure to welcome Julio Gonzalez to the show. He is the founder of Engineered Tax Services. They specialize in helping companies, developers, manufacturers gain tax credit information. They consult on that, and he has a lot of inside information into what the economy is doing by nature of doing that, I'm sure. And today we want to talk about the stimulus packages, the CARES Act, the HEROS Act. Let's kind of dive in to see how that might affect a potential for a recovery. Julio, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good.
I appreciate it.
It's good to have you. Give us a little background as to, maybe just quickly what you do, and you sort of see things early in the economic cycle. If people are buying equipment for a manufacturing facility, if they're going to be developing properties, they're consulting with you and asking about tax credits and what's available to them. So you're probably very early in seeing what's going to happen in the economy years hence, right?
Yeah, there's no question about it. We do tax credits in the areas of manufacturing, real estate, structure, infrastructure. So clearly we are seeing it in progress before the public sees it. And certainly, we have a good feel for those economies and how it ultimately impacts our national economy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So given that, what are you seeing? We know that real estate development is booming. I mean, there's a massive shortage in housing, especially now with COVID and then the race riots. People are fleeing high-density cities, and they want to move to the suburbs, which I can't blame them. I think they're making a great decision getting out of the cities. So tons of demand. I mean, it's maybe counterintuitive. 3-4 months ago, everybody thought the world was coming to an end, but it feels like the complete opposite is happening. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think there's been winners and losers in the real estate. I think you're right. I think people are moving out, and that's creating a housing shortage and, obviously demand. But, we have retailers, the big malls.
Yeah, that's a problem.
The hotels are suffering, right? So we have winners and losers, and certainly, we'll figure out how the losers adapt, and the winners are certainly taking advantage of the changing times for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Do you get involved when it comes to tax credits in a reuse of properties, reuse of retail properties, reuse of hotels? I mean, some of those are trying to turn into residential. I have a buddy of mine that's doing a deal on a hotel property to turn it into low-income housing. Those are pretty small homes or condos or apartments, to turn hotel rooms into apartments. But do you get involved in that? Do people consult with you on tax credits there, or is that not a big thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they do. And we're seeing tremendous amounts of hotels shifting to affordable housing, right? Small units. And I think that's something we're going to see, especially in the big cities and the regions where there's a demand for that and no demand for hotels, and the hotels are foreclosing. And, so what's the alternative for that kind of product? And it really has been in the affordable housing.
Mm-hmm. So, but I can't imagine that's going to work very well. I mean, I know there will be some of it, but I don't think it's a big trend. I can't see it that way. And plus, most of these hotels have one of the danger zones that I think people are fleeing from, and that's what I call an elevator. If you're worried about a virus, you do not want to be in an elevator. That's for sure. And so typically a hotel is a high rise, or, at least a couple, 3-4 stories. 4 stories, I guess, would be super common configuration.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So we'll see how that goes. What about retail properties, shopping malls, or just shopping centers?
Yeah, the REITs really are trying to go into these shopping centers and create distribution centers from them and, try to redesign them in a way that, we've seen distribution be a real winner in the real estate industry, where the malls have been the real loser. But maybe that was coming anyway, right? Maybe that was something that just got accelerated through this pandemic.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. A lot of stuff has been accelerated, no question about that.
I think so.
So, with a stimulus, with a government program, it always, encourages bad behavior, if you will. And when things started reopening, employers were really struggling to get people to come back to work because they were actually, in many cases, making more money sitting at home on the couch than working with a bonus stimulus, right? or they were using it to gamble on Robinhood in the stock market.
That's right. That's right.
Crazy stuff.
That's right.
So tell us about the last program and then the possibility of the new stimulus.
Yeah, I mean, the CARES Act was really kind of a temporary Band-Aid of programs that would hopefully get us through, the summer, thinking that by then we would have addressed the virus in a way that maybe we were finding cures, or maybe we were coming up with vaccines or better ways to adjust to it. But that hasn't, really played out. So, the next step is to have basically the CARES 2 program or the HEROS Act, which would, one thing, right, we're doing the $600 extended vacation of the basically the payments going out. And, the Senate doesn't want to extend that anymore through the HEROS Act. They feel that 10 million jobs are sitting at home because they're getting the extra $600 in benefit to do so. And so if you saw their version of the bill came out yesterday, they said we would compromise. Maybe we would do $100, maybe we would do $200 to people under a certain income level, but we certainly weren't going to extend the $600 to keep 10 million jobs from staying at home.
Right. But what if people can't go back to work? What if, their local government or even their state government has said, you got to stay locked down? Then what do people do?
Yeah, and certainly the House feels that way and wants to get that $600 extended, and the Senate feels it should be something lower than that. I mean, here's the risk. It's like, okay, we continue to put this money out. We increase our debt, right? And I guess that debt, is that a good investment if we continue to pay that out? Will that ultimately stimulate the economy or put us into a worse economy? And that's what I think they're trying to debate right now between the House and Senate.
Yeah. So with all this debt and this money creation, I mean, it's absolutely crazy that it's like, the government just acts like we can just create funny money out of thin air forever. And, there's no consequences. Are there consequences? You just alluded to that. So,
well, I mean, the consequences, I think, could be traumatic. I mean, it could be massive inflation, that we follow up with this, and how are we going to pay it? And, we're paying all this money to interest and debt. How do we pay for other things, infrastructure and other things? I mean, there's only so much money that comes into the tax system, right, to the IRS and Treasury that we pay.
Right.
And if a lot of that money is going strictly to debt, then how do we grow the economy? How do we have other programs?
Right.
It would be challenging.
But, the magic question is, can we defy gravity and just create new fake money forever and, build roads and give people bailouts and stimulus and, bail out American Airlines and, whatever else we want? I mean, I don't know. It's, people are asking, where's all the inflation from, the Great Recession stimulus from now? But I think they're asking the wrong question. How would it have been differently if they didn't do that? There certainly is some inflation in tuition, which that's a whole nother argument. That's a complete ripoff, obviously.
Yeah,
healthcare, food prices are going through the roof. They're at a 5-decade high right now. And I'm noticing that, every time I go to the grocery store, we live near each other, so you might shop at that same Trader Joe's I shop at on PGA Boulevard sometimes.
That's right.
And I was there, and, it used to be $80 for groceries, and now it's $120, $130, and it seems like I'm getting kind of the same amount of groceries. So, prices are going up, aren't they?
Well, that's really what impacts, the consumers.
Right.
I mean, the groceries and those kind of cost, housing, right? And so those are big challenges, right? That we have to ultimately, you saw the Tea Party, right? The Meadows and the other senators, they're afraid to put out any more debt. They really are truly scared of the consequences of that and trying to come up with a plan that maybe doesn't increase the debts, but encourages, other behavior through credits.
Yeah, interesting. So, sum it up for us. I mean, where do you think we're going? Do you have any predictions on what's coming next?
Well, I think, clearly we've seen some good signs that some of these vaccines are in trial phase 3, phase 4. They're having some good success. Like the HEROS Act, they want to put out $1 trillion, and 25% of that, $230 billion is for the vaccine and finding cures. So that's a big part of it. The other part, bailing out the industries that have been hurt the most, some stimulus money going back to the individuals. I think they're trying to quantify the amounts, find the recovery, right? Because once the virus goes away, I think we would see the economy come back if we don't go too far into Great Depression, right? If we kind of continue to stabilize and open up and get to a point where the vaccines kind of kick in, and then we could see better days.
Yeah. Well, vaccines take a long time, and nobody knows if the vaccine will be safe. Certainly, anti-vaxxers were out before, but I think with this one, there's even more concern. And also, vaccinating 7 billion people? I mean, that doesn't happen in a month, okay?
That doesn't happen, right?
It probably takes, I don't know, how long does it take to do that, to manufacture all those vaccines and administer them? That's going to take years. I mean, at least a year, right? Nobody knows. Right. It's never been done, right?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Something. Anything else you're seeing that you want to share, or maybe share some insights into because we have a lot of real estate investor listeners. Some of the things that developers do in terms of tax credits they get and things like that. I just think that's a pretty fascinating kind of behind the scenes world that the typical real estate investor, obviously the typical real estate consumer, they don't see it. They don't think much about it. What levels of government are you dealing with? Is it just local or?
No, it's federal, it's state, and local as well. So, there's 20 tax credits associated with investing in real estate. At the federal level, making a building energy efficient generates tax credits. Making a building renovated from a place of an old and worn out real estate project, credits associated with bringing a building back to life. A building for making the facade easements better. The air rights above the building can be sold, and the buildings with the components within a building can be accelerated based on the premium product that's placed into a building. So there's
how do the air rights create a tax credit?
Well, basically the air rights can be sold. So, and you can sell them as credits, you can sell them as cash. You see, sometimes people don't need the credits, so they cash them out. And it's a great market, right? So you have air rights above you. You're zoned to go up to 8 stories, but you're at 4 stories. And someone wants to go to add stories, but they don't have any air rights. So those are transferred. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So you can sell them to that building. And
that's right.
They can build higher. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So you said there were 20, though.
There's so many. I mean, there's ways to accelerate depreciation within a building through a cost segregation study.
Yep, I've done those. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we do about 400 a month. So, you appreciate those, right? If you make the building energy efficient. One of the credits we're seeing a lot of now is putting the 5G rooftop antennas up on the buildings. Is the government incentivizing 5G for 100%, right? Because their goal is to have the new internet, the new web out there in the next few years, and the 5 carriers, really the AT&Ts, the Verizons of the world, are in a desperate race to get up there. You saw they had 2 big lawsuits because they said there were 5G everywhere. They were 5G probably nowhere,
right.
And but their FCC licenses require them to be on every rooftop, basically. And so that's a mad dash. The problem is they don't know the property owners, right? Mm-hmm. And so they've been living in the world of big antennas on land, but not getting on rooftops. And that's been the big dilemma for them. So, there's certain tax credits associated with that type of infrastructure because the government knows that, the automation and the things that we want to do as a country aren't available without that 5G web throughout the country.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. What about the opportunity zone? Are you consulting on opportunity zone stuff at all?
Tremendous. Yeah, we do a lot of that. Obviously, through the pandemic, we've had a little slowdown, but obviously the CARES Act extended the opportunity zone. And again, what a wonderful tax program to go into areas that need structures to bring back business and don't have that infrastructure. And certainly you have some tax gain benefits.
I think they're going to have to make that tax benefit even sweeter now, because a lot of those opportunity zones are places where there's been a lot of civil unrest. I mean, I can't imagine businesses wanting to go into those places or developers wanting to, anybody wanting anything built there. But, I know people will chase tax credits, obviously. But I think look, at opportunity zone is a pretty complex thing, right? And I interviewed one of the authors of the opportunity zone for the Obama administration on the show before. And, you got to be a developer. You've got to do improvements, which I think ultimately is just going to cause gentrification. Every government program just backfires. I'm not very optimistic about government programs doing what they say they're going to do, but
sure.
That's a philosophical discussion. But now, I mean, have you seen any projects halted or maybe just less interest in stuff because of the civil unrest? And also a lot of those areas I would guess would be higher density too. So then there's the COVID problem too. I mean, what do you think about that?
Post-pandemic, the interest just fell off the cliff. I mean, where we were seeing funds and developers, being very proactive, that's completely halted. We've seen projects just stop in their foot tracks. I mean, the pandemic is basically, from what we're seeing, shut it down.
Wow. So what do you think about that? Is it because, it's sort of earmarked for areas that would be highly affected, like the migration out of places like that due to the pandemic and then the civil unrest?
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. And like you said, for that to come back, you're going to have to greatly sweeten the
pie. Yeah, I agree with you. Well, good stuff. Give out your website and wrap it up with any closing comments you have.
Well, appreciate it. Our website is engineeredtaxservices.com. And, we appreciate being on your show, and we're very thankful for what you do. And let's continue to get the education out there to help people.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.